Hello, everyone. How was the FNAF movie? It's released today, right? I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was good. I'm praying that it was good. I haven't seen it yet because I am recording this a week and a half before you see this, for scheduling reasons. So, that being said, I hope it was good. Speaking of things regarding FNAF that haven't always been as good, let's talk about the history of Five Nights at Freddy's lore. This will be fun. I have prepared an exhaustively comprehensive guide for you in this nice, neat, 78-slide PowerPoint, for which I have 26 pages of notes in a Google Doc. Oh boy, this is gonna be a fun one. So, that being said, let's get started with FNAF 1 through 3 and the Haunted Pizzeria era. And considering that this is ostensibly a franchise about a haunted pizzeria, that just sets up for you how wild this franchise is going to get going forward. So that being said, are you ready for it?
I am indeed.
Getting started with FNAF 1 and Nathan Dunlap. So FNAF 1 set up a bunch of questions, and it never followed through on any of their answers. And this theory served to answer those questions by tying it to real events. I really want to discuss the actual real events that led to this theory, as they are actually interesting, if also, of course, very tragic. But 78 slides, 26 pages of notes. I recommend that you check out MatPat's original video about it. It's pretty good. But I am just going to give you the brief. This theory suggested that your player character, Mike Schmidt, had killed 5 children in 1993 by luring them away while wearing a mascot suit and then stuffing them into animatronics. And now, years later, you're a death row prisoner, serving time and being haunted every night by nightmares of the animatronics you stuck children into. And it did all this by tying it back to the real-world 1993 killings from a man named Nathan Dunlap inside of a Chuck E. Cheese's. And again, I want to discuss the actual tragedy that led to this theory, but so much stuff to cover. Also, it is just worth noting, I'm going to point this out now, that I'm going to be primarily discussing Matt's theories for most of this, because MatPat, from Game Theory, was basically the only source of FNAF theories for quite a while. So, that being said, let's move on to FNAF 2. Prequel or sequel, damn it! Prequel. It's a prequel. We established pretty quick that it was a prequel. In this game, we go back to November all the time. Well, not all the time, very specifically, November of 1987. 1987 probably doesn't mean anything. Okay, it quite possibly does, considering you're watching this, but let's pretend for a second that you are not very familiar with Five Nights at Freddy's. It probably doesn't mean anything to you, because I didn't get to the chance to talk a whole ton about FNAF 1. FNAF 1 introduced a whole bunch of questions, like I said, and one of those questions was, what was the bite of 87? Because Phone Guy, in one of the calls, tells you, at one point, that the place was pretty big with the kids until the bite of 87. And all he elaborates on that with is, you'd be surprised how long someone can live without their frontal lobe. Yeah, Jax, that terrified reaction is correct.
Not concerning at all.
Not in the slightest.
Not worrisome.
Yeah, so, this game, set up as a prequel, set in 1987, which is obviously a prequel to FNAF 1's 1993, and, so, with that, Matt was also able to figure out some rudimentary timeline info. FNAF 1 was in 1993, like I said. Before that, there was this pizzeria in 1987, and before that, there was Fredbear's Family Diner. Scratch that, I missed one. FNAF 1, this one, previous Freddy Fazbear's location, because, yes, of course, there's gotta be. And before that, there was something called Fredbear's Family Diner, which none of us understood then, largely understand now, but still, it took us a while to get to this point, and we're still not totally familiar with it. Because there has never been anything set there, but we'll get to that. For now, just keep in mind, Fredbear, not Freddy, apparently they're different characters. Or something. Originally, we didn't think they were different characters. Somehow. We'll get to that. Moving on with Purple Guy. Knew he was a killer. First time that I saw him. Also, shout out to this fan art. I tried to avoid using fan art when possible, but there are a few instances in this where I had to use fan art because the official images either didn't exist or were unusably terrible. So, I have all of the fan artists credited in the description, and I will also credit them at the end of this feature-length video. This game features several minigames that you have a chance to see after you die. Apparently, you're more likely to see them after you get a Golden Freddy jump scare. Learned that one while I was attempting to get all of the minigames on stream recently. You can check out the VOD, it's on my channel somewhere. I had fun with it. I don't know why you get them more often after a Golden Freddy jump scare, but okay then. But yeah, so for now, so there are several minigames depicting various events. One of them features what might very well be the most important event in this entire franchise. We'll get to why it's so important later on, but I will just go on with it right now in the minigame titled Take Cake to the Children, or Save Him. So, in Take Cake to the Children, you are playing as Freddy, giving cake to a bunch of screaming children. Then there is one child who's stuck outside in the rain. A purple man drives up in a purple car and then turns crying child in rain into dead child in rain. I hope we all know who that killer was, but at this time we didn't, so I'll just leave him as Purple Guy, because at this point, that's the only thing he was known as. Let's just say we knew he was trouble when he walked in. So, Matt saw this and concluded a few things. This minigame is set in Fredbear's Family Diner. This is the first major kill in the timeline. That child would later go on to possess the puppet. This event is what caused the owners of Fredbear's to sell to Fazbear Entertainment. And as a result of this, the puppet wants revenge on their killer. Sadly, they wouldn't get it, as we move from here to the original Freddy Fazbear's, and Purple Guy shows back up, killing 5 more children. The Missing Children's Incident, or as it's known now, the MCI. I am going to call it the MCI for the rest of this video. After the MCI, that brought us to 1987, where a new Freddy's location was opened up, this time with the toy animatronics. But someone snuck in and used a yellow suit to do something. And now, none of the animatronics are acting right. The Golden Freddy killer is back. But then, Matt makes an incredibly bold claim, with 0 evidence. I don't like this theory, but I have to discuss it. Phone killer. This was the opinion at the time, because Matt was basically, like I said, the only FNAF theorist at this point, meaning that when he walked in the room, he would still make the whole place shimmer, and everyone had to believe his theories, basically, because there weren't a whole ton of other theories. Even if, in retrospect, this theory doesn't make any sense. But this was the one that he went with, basically just because we knew that phone guy presumably had some strange role in the company that wasn't connected, and wasn't super strongly connected to anything because he took over as a night shift security guard at one point, but also knew about hang on, that didn't appear until FNAF 3, whatever. Basically, he knew more than he should have, considering that he talked about becoming a night watchman. So, there are a couple of other things that from FNAF 2 that are important. Shadows in faded light. The shadow animatronics. No one knows a goddamn thing about these two. They show up every once in a while and just kinda hang there. Shadow Bonnie or RWQXZS Shadow Bonnie. I'm not calling it anything other than Shadow Bonnie. Shadow Bonnie sometimes shows up in your office. I don't think he does anything. Then Shadow Freddy, I don't think even does that. He just shows up on the cameras. And they're kinda just there. They're
not
weird.
Creepy at all.
Yeah, not creepy in the slightest. They are weird. They aren't particularly important, but they led to a lot of theorizing, so they are worth noting. And also, we have known it all this time. We haven't actually known it all this time, but that was the only Taylor Swift joke I could think of that associated with the word time. So, we have something of a timeline. Just to clear something up, there have been 3 locations called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. There was the original, after Fredbear's, but before FNAF 2, that hasn't appeared in a game yet. Then, there was the one in FNAF 2, then it was closed down, presumably due to the bite of 87, or possibly due to another missing children's incident. We're not really sure, but we do know that there was a second MCI, these days known as the Dead Child Incident, or the DCI. So, one of those two things led to the FNAF 2 location getting closed down, then years later, the FNAF 1 location opened up. So, Fredbear's Family Diner it was later retconned to 2, but originally just had 1 animatronic. We now know that to be Fredbear, aka Golden Freddy, but originally we just thought it was Freddy. Just regular old Freddy Fazbear. This restaurant got popular, then it expanded out into having the core 4 main animatronics. Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica. Eventually, that restaurant, the original Freddy's, fell into disrepair, and those animatronics became the withered animatronics. Fair enough. Yeah, so those animatronics those animatronics fell into disrepair and became the withered animatronics, and at the same time, the toy animatronics were created. Then, the toy animatronics had a number of malfunctions, one of which was probably the bite of 87, so they were shut down, and the Wizards were refurbished and became the FNAF 1 animatronics. So the FNAF 1 animatronics are the Withered animatronics because they were there, then they fell into disrepair, and then they were re-repaired. That is the order, and I wanted to clear this up because I have been confused about this for quite a while. That being said, let's get to FNAF 3, the final chapter. He will come back. He always does. 'Cause he never goes out of style. Oh dear God, FNAF 3! This is the game that introduced that guy on screen. I'll hopefully have a better render of him in the final video, but if I don't, that's what you're stuck with. Within 6 months of the original game coming out, there was now a threequel. And within 6 hours of the threequel coming out, it had already been completely and utterly decompiled. Time for MatPat to release a 3-part video that was supposed to be 2 parts, but then, I shit you not, the file was too big for YouTube to upload. The thing is, in those videos, he didn't talk about the game itself very much because there was so much to cover, so now I need to give a brief overview of the game. So, the game is No joke, set in 2023. No wonder this year is so jam-packed with stuff. Also, starting from night 3, we get to hear old training tapes from our old favorite phone guy regarding the original Freddy's location and the original Springlock suits they wore. For context, our nights 1 and 2 phone guy, Phone Dude, who is voiced by the same person, but talks like a surfer dude, man. So Phone Dude is, like, sort of running this attraction, I guess. I didn't go over that. This game is set with you as a night watchman at an attraction called Fazbear Frights, not to be confused with Fazbear Frights, the book series that's gonna come in about 5 years. We'll get there. Springlock suits were 2-in-1 things that could either be used with Springlocks open and an animatronic endoskeleton inside, or they could be used with the Springlocks closed and be used as mascot suits like you'd see at Disney World. Provided they didn't get wet, in which case they would clamp up and kill the wearer. Also, just something that's worth noting, Springlock can both mean the actual Springlock mechanisms that allow it to be the 2-in-1, or it can mean the suits themselves. This is important because at one point he says that these suits are retired due to multiple simultaneous Springlock failures. And for a little while, people thought that meant at the exact same time, multiple suits failed, which didn't really make sense. Also, there are end-of-night minigames, wherein you, playing as one of the core 4 animatronics, followed Shadow Freddy until you were disassembled by the purple guy. Then in the end, purple guy gets attacked by all 5 spirits, with one special spirit leading the pack until he hides in his old Spring Bonnie suit for a second before the Springlocks fail and he seemingly dies, left lying on the cold, hard ground for decades. Also, there are a few strange minigames that you can get by, I shit you not, dialing numbers into the bricks on your wall. 'Cause that makes so much sense.
I think it's best not to question it at this point.
Yeah. Like, I'm not even talking about, like, from a logic standpoint. I'm just thinking that's a weird-ass game design decision. Next slide. The new lore. I'm going to try to do this quickly because there are a lot of these. OG Freddy's. In one of the hidden minigames, we saw what was believed then to be the original Freddy's location with Golden Freddy, Fredbear, and Spring Bonnie. I don't know why they thought this was the original Freddy's location and not Fredbear's Family Diner, as makes a lot more sense. But whatever. Truth about the shadows. Well, truth with a question mark. 2 animatronics were killed at a sister location, no not that one, due to multiple simultaneous Springlock failures. This is the error that I just told you about. People thought originally that line meant 2 animatronics had simultaneously seized up and 2 different wearers had been killed. We now know that is not the case, but that was the original theory. And then those employees went on and became the Shadow Animatronics somehow. No, Matt does not elaborate on how. Purple guy equals Spring Bonnie. In the Night 4 phone call, we are told Spring Bonnie is being moved to a different location, but it's not explained why. Also, Springtrap is literally the antagonist of this game, and also there's that purple guy moment in the last Follow Me. I don't know how I can make this any more explicit. Here's where we get to the kind of weird ones. Puppet did the stuffing. This theory basically suggested that because the puppet is still alive due to the animatronic suit, it decided that the MCI victims must also want to be brought back to life via animatronic suits, and so Purple Guy was not the one who stuffed the MCI kids into animatronics. The puppet did that in the Give Gifts, Give Life minigame, and from there, it gave life to those 5 animatronics. It gave life to those 5 spirits. FNAF 2 calls are pre-recorded. This theory is basically just going back to FNAF 2, because Phone Guy welcomes you to your new summer job, but like I said, November, not a summer month. Not in either hemisphere is that a summer month. And so, that means that when the FNAF 2 signs say that it's a grand reopening, they are talking about that location specifically after it was closed down a few months prior due to the bite of 87. And last, FNAF 1 is the OG Freddy's location, because the FNAF 1 location has, as we know from the minigames, a safe room. And the safe rooms, according to Phone Guy, were discontinued because that was where Purple Guy did the stuffings. The new timeline. At the beginning of it all, we have Fredbear's Family Diner. But this place had to close down because of the first murder, before Purple Guy had his signature, the suit, figured out. Jax, I'm going to call on you for a little bit of help with this one, because you know criminal psychology. Serial killers tend to have, like, a signature that they use for their kills, right?
Yes, an MO is part of it. Basically, oftentimes people kill and they do the same thing. There's a bunch of different reasons why they do it. Sometimes it's because they want their kills to be connected, because they want kind of that fame. Sometimes it's a subconscious thing they just do. Sometimes it's because they're killing in order to do a specific thing. Sometimes it's a combination of many different things. But typically, serial killers are identified through the unique aspects of their killings.
Alright. That brief lesson on criminal psychology aside, at this point in the timeline, after with just the first victim killed, he did not have his signature figured out yet, and as such, he just got out of the car and shanked the kid, without, Jax, I see you facepalming. Do you not like my use of the word shank?
You shouldn't be laughing, is the thing. That shouldn't be funny.
Well, get used to it, because I use it in regard to that particular moment a lot throughout this presentation. So, have fun.
A horrible, horrible tragedy, and I should not find it funny.
It's in a video game.
I'm gonna find it funny.
Yeah. So at this point, he wasn't using the suit, he just got out of his purple car and shanked. So then, and that victim goes on to possess the puppet. Soon, that location is bought out by Fazbear Entertainment, who opens up Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where fantasy and fun come to life. However, this new location is short-lived, as Purple Guy will soon show back up wearing a Spring Bonnie costume, which he uses to lure 5 children into the back and kill them before the puppet stuffs them into suits. And as the corpses begin to rot, they stink up the place, leading to it getting shut down. Then, in 1987, it got a new location. However, that location would be short-lived, as Purple Guy tampered with Spring Bonnie at one of the locations, and that caused all of the animatronics to go haywire. But somehow, the location got back on its feet again. But only a few weeks after that, their pink and white toy Foxy, who the kids keep taking apart and failing to put back together, so the employees affectionately refer to as the Mangle, that Mangle would soon bite off someone's frontal lobe, shutting the place down. Well, fast forward to the 90s, we return to FNAF 1's smaller original location with only 4, well, 5, but as far as Fazbear Entertainment knows, 4, animatronics. And so FNAF 1 happens, and then Purple Guy lures all of the animatronics to the employee's safe room to be dismantled. But what he doesn't realize is that in doing so, he's setting the spirits free, allowing them to torment him, until he goes up to his old spring bunny suit and says, "Drop everything now. Meet me in the pouring rain." Unfortunately for him, pouring rain is not something Springlock suits like. And so he gets springlocked. However, he somehow doesn't die from this. He just spends like 30 years lying on that cold hard ground until Fazbear's Fright finds him and pulls him out, and then the Fazbear's Fright security guard burns the pizzeria down for some reason to take him out. And, well, actually, scratch that. No, at this point, it wasn't believed that the security guard did that. So it's his job to hunt down the Fazbear's Fright security guard and kill him for reasons, until eventually the place burns to the ground due to faulty wiring. Now, 3 more theories. None of these are important enough on their own for me to talk about them, but they are important enough. None of these are important enough to get their own slide, rather, but they are important enough for me to discuss them. So, phone trap. This is the exact same theory as before, except with the added benefit of Purple Guy being... Yes, you know what I was saying about... You know what I was saying about using fan art when official images don't exist? Sometimes there is very good reason why official images don't exist. But I was looking online, and I found this fan-made model of Phone Trap, and I had to use it.
It's quite something.
Yep. But, yeah, so this is same theory as before, but with the added benefit of Phone Guy being one of the only being one of the only employees who might know about the safe room. Pink Guy? No. No, absolutely the fuck not. There was a lot of discussion about this in the FNAF 2, 3, and 4 days. Basically, people were wondering if this purple-colored killer and this purple-colored killer were the same purple-colored killer, because they had ever so slightly different shades of purple, which made people decide, oh, they gotta be different, right? This theory was trouble when it walked in.
Such is the way of theorists.
Yep. Obviously, these two are the same, but this was a pretty commonly talked about theory, and I remember this from my minimal amount of theorizing about this game in, like, 3rd and 4th grade, so I wanted to bring it up. And last, the puppet returns. Springtrap is the only real animatronic in FNAF 3. There are a bunch of phantom animatronics that you hallucinate due to, getting gas issues in your office, but only Springtrap is real. The only real animatronic other than the puppet, that is. Because while usually they're phantom puppet, they also appear on one of the cameras. So real, they even appear reflected in the water. No, we don't understand this anymore now. But Matt suggested that this was indeed the real puppet, and they came back to seek revenge on their killer by burning down Fazbear's Fright to finally kill him one last time. So now, we're done. No more kills, no more animatronics, no more FNAF. Right? Or fucking not. FNAF 4 through 6. The Afton Era. FNAF 4. The epilogue. the true final chapter. Right?
Surely.
Throughout this game, we play as someone, presumably a child based on the room they're in, being tormented by nightmare variations of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica, who are officially the only post-FNAF 1 version of the core 4, of which I like all 4 variants. I like some of the toys, I like none of the Wizards, I like none of the Phantoms, and after that it stops being the core 4. Night 5, they are all replaced by Nightmare Fredbear, and later by Nightmare. I will get into those two. At the end of each night, we have little minigames where we play as that guy. Okay, this kid didn't have a canon name now, didn't have a canon name then. This kid doesn't have a canon name now. He might have a canon name by the time you're seeing this. I have heard talk that the movie might give him one. But originally, he was just the crying child. And as of October 27th, October 17th, 2023, he still is just the crying child. So
a lot of people call him Evan.
Yes, I'll get into why a lot of people call him Evan later on. That is a fan name based on evidence, but it is still not outright confirmed. So, Crying Child is tormented by his older brother, Foxy Bro, in the days leading up to his birthday party. Meanwhile, he's constantly contacted by, he's here, he's there, he's everywhere, who you gonna call? Psyche friend Fredbear. Yeah, so there's a Golden Freddy plush that I didn't put on the slide, but I'll have something about him on screen. That Golden Freddy plush watches him and talks to him throughout the entire game, even in situations where it doesn't make any sense for him to be able to hear anybody. We'll get to one of those. But I'm not sure how we decided that this was Fredbear and not just Golden Freddy. I'm not sure how people figured out that, I don't know. But we now understand that that's Fredbear, so we'll stick with it. Anyway, the bullying from Foxy Bro continues until the day of the party. Foxy Bro puts the crying child's head inside of the Fredbear animatronic, and...
Was that the bite of 87?
At this time, most of us sure as hell seem to think that was the bite of 87. And to that end, psychic friend Fredbear talks to him while he's, dead? ? And says, we are still your friends. Do you believe that? You are broken. I will put you back together. That line might be one of the most important lines of dialogue in this whole franchise. Crying Child equals victim of 87. Like I said, at this point, we all kinda collectively believe that that was indeed the bite of 87. We were wrong. There are multiple moments in this game that say 1983, plus the spring locks were gone by 87. This is not the bite of 87, this is the bite of 83. Or as the people in my elementary school called it, for some ungodly reason, the crush of 83. I don't know how we decided that, but we did alright. Crying Child equals puppet. This is a weird one that lines up annoyingly well with the existing evidence. No, I am not going to tell you what that existing evidence was. And last, Golden Freddy is the first victim. This theory is basically just, well, if the Crying Child is the puppet, then Golden Freddy must be the first victim, because that's all of our evidence. These theories are wrong, and I am so incredibly glad these theories are wrong. And Matt agrees with me. Which I know because after he made that conclusion, he went on a pretty long tangent about well, yes, it would make so much more narrative sense to flip those two. This series will never do that because this series will never fully make narrative sense, because if this series makes full narrative sense, then Scott will have nowhere to go with it. I disagree, but but we know that's how Scott feels. But after all this, there was a live stream. A massive live talkback stream where Matt got down with a bunch of other FNAF YouTubers and they discussed this franchise. And during it, shit went down. Let's talk about it. This was a wild fucking ride. During this stream, there were many technical difficulties. And during those technical difficulties, we realized something. Scott was watching the stream. This stream crashed 3 times. And each time, Scott's website, FNAFworld.com, was updated. First, with an image saying, 4 games, 1 story. I mean, yeah, I think we all already knew that, but I guess it's useful to know this isn't some anthology. Then, what is seen in shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. Okay, then. Interesting. And lastly, in the FNAF 4 minigames, why would the tiny toy Chica be missing her beak? I didn't mention this before, but I'm mentioning it now. In FNAF 2, when Toy Chica attacks you, her beak is removed. So, place your bets now, everyone! When Scott said this, what did he mean? Was it A, all 4 games were just dreams? B, there are weird sound illusionists placed inside the animatronics, manipulating the mind of whoever was in the story? C, there was nightmare illusion gas inside of the bedroom, tricking the child into seeing those things as much scarier than they were? Or was it D, none of the above, and Scott was just trolling? Jax, what is your answer?
D. I vote D, none of the above, because I don't like any of the above answers.
The answer? It's all of them! It's literally fucking all of them!
How can it be the 3 and also none of the 3?
Oh, you'll get to that!
I don't know that I want to.
Tough! You signed up for this? We're going to 10 o'clock tonight if we have to.
Which sounds more possible than I wish it would.
So, we'll get to most of those. At this point, what we believed was dream theory. All 4 games were just dreams in the mind of a child. I somehow left this out of my original draft, so I'm not adding another slide, so I'm gonna try and keep this quick. Following this stream, Matt concluded that the first 4 games were just dreams, and understandably, people despised this. But I actually kind of like it. Now, hear me out. Bear with me. There's a bear with me. So, his conclusion was not, these games are dreams so they don't matter and all our theorizing was wasted. His theory, these are dreams, but they were based on urban legends that existed, and those urban legends must have come from somewhere, right? I like that theory, because it's basically saying that all our theorizing was important. It's just that the original events all tied back to this one kid, probably the most important character in the franchise at this point. And if you say that because I like this theory, I did something bad, then I should back, why does it feel so good? And if the series ended here, I would have been fine. But of course, it didn't end here, and now we talk about Sister Location. The other epilogue. Hang on, I need to take this. What's that?
Hello? Hi, were you about to start talking about Sister Location right after FNAF 4?
Yeah? 'Cause it's the next game in the franchise?
You have to talk about the books next.
No.
You have to.
Fuck. Sorry about that. Next, I have to talk about the Silver Eyes. Or the beginning of the end. This is the first Five Nights at Freddy's novel. I have never read a FNAF book. I have no desire to ever read a FNAF book. But they are really important to the lore, so I have to talk about this. Here is an ultra-brief summary cut down from what's on the FNAF wiki. 17-year-old Charlotte Charlie Emily returns to her hometown of Hurricane, Utah. Yes, Jax, this does mean that this is hyperfixation of yours number 2 that has something to do with Utah. Anyway, this is 10 years after a tragedy. Her dear friend Michael Brooks went missing inside of the now closed down Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Charlie and some friends go inside, where they find the Core 4 animatronics, which it is revealed were built by Charlie's father, Henry Emily. Keep in mind, the last name Emily technically hasn't appeared yet, but it appears in the third book, and it really doesn't change anything if you know it at this point. So, stuff happens. They meet a security guard named Dave Miller. Dave traps one of the kids in an old Springlock suit, and it gets revealed that Dave was the co-owner of Freddy's along with Henry. Dave then reveals his real name, William Afton, along with the fact that he murdered 6 children in the 80s, one of whom was Michael Brooks. More stuff happens, William gets caught.
He just dropped that?
Huh?
He just dropped that information?
It's called an evil monologue, Jax. And he drops it in front of a kid that he believes he is about to murder.
It's still called stupid.
I mean, yeah, did I ever tell you this book was well written?
No, and I think there was a reason for that.
Yep. Anyway, long story short, it was a bad time. And all of that is very important, but it also raises the ever-important question, are the books canon? Well, yes, but actually no. To explain this in more detail, I need some props. This water bottle is the core FNAF can. Not water bottle, I don't know why I said this. This half-empty Dr. Pepper bottle is the core FNAF canon. But running along the core FNAF canon, you have this piece of tape. And this piece of tape is the Silver Eyes canon. The Silver Eyes canon and the FNAF canon are built on the same groundwork, my hand, meaning they have the same rules of their universe. However, the events do not directly correlate one-to-one. So, for instance, Charlie has a brother in the books who is never mentioned in the games. The events don't perfectly match up, but the groundwork, same rules. And that's how this works. Does that make any sense at all to you?
I think it makes about as much sense as anything FNAF related can.
Yeah, good point. if you need a different example, think of it like Marvel's What If. Same multiverse, so same rules of the story, but different, but it's set in different universes, meaning the events don't match up one-to-one. The specifics of what is introduced and how it's important will be more important going forward, but for now, just remember that Silverized introduced William Afton, aka the Urple Fellow, aka Springtrap, as well as Henry and Charlie Emily. Plus, you all know it at this point, but remember the name Michael. Not in this context, but it's gonna come back. It always comes back. Now, sister location. Actually, though,
Yay!
there was enough speculation about this game prior to its release that I want to give it its own slide. I'm not going to go in depth on any of these, but prequel. Based on the limited evidence we had, Matt thought this game was going to be a prequel related to events going on. Pigtail Girl. Matt said that this girl with pigtails in FNAF 4 was going to be the spirit-possessing baby, and also the crying child's sister. I think that line was literally just based on the title, Sister Location. Not your sister location, but his sister's location. That pun, I'm pretty sure, is what his reason for that was. Anyway, Afton Robotics. Because of some source code clues, Matt saw AFTN Robotics listed at one point and assumed William Afton would be in this game, meaning that it would be tied strongly to the books. Ennard equals Puppet. This was concluded based on his appearance, which I'm now realizing, bad image on screen, you can't really see his appearance, but he does kind of look vaguely like the puppet. Also, one of his teasers included the line, "There's a little of me in every body." And that line is why we thought this was going to be a prequel. This game is the origin of Ennard, aka the puppet. Obviously, he got a lot of stuff wrong, but it is hilarious to me how much he got right. Speaking of, let's talk about the game. Overview. This game has a lot going on, so I'm just going to go over the important bits. Mr. Afton. There's some voiceover at the start wherein the main character wherein a man discusses animatronic designs with one Mr. Afton. A name that sounds awfully familiar, does it not? Immortal and the Restless. Between nights, there's this weird-ass show called The Immortal and the Restless, wherein a vampire named Vlad tries to convince his ex-wife Clara that her vampire baby isn't his son, even though he clearly is. Baby Scoops. There's a minigame in this game wherein a blonde, green-eyed girl gets killed by Baby, who at that time has blue eyes. And then, for all of her other appearances, Baby has green eyes. FNAF 4 connections. In the 6th night of this game, we have access to cameras which, by typing in the code 1983, show us footage of the FNAF 4 house. On top of that, there is a map layout that shows that the FNAF 4 house is on top of the sister location bunker. Somehow. Innards? Nope. Ennards. The canon ending of this game has us getting our insides scooped out and replaced with Ennard, an amalgamation of all 4 animatronics. Then, over the course of a few cutscenes, we see our protagonist gradually become less and less human, as well as more and more purple. Then eventually, Ennard ejects itself from our body, and we seemingly die, before coming back to life as a rotting corpse with no internal organs.
Now this purple character is different from the other one.
We now know that. You're right, that we now know that. We didn't originally know that. I'll get to that.
Of course we did.
Yep.
We didn't know shit.
Yeah. And last, monologue. After beating this game's hardest difficulty, you're greeted by a cutscene from someone saying, "Father, it's me, Michael. I did what you told me to. I found it. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together. But something is wrong with me. I should be dead. But I'm not. There's only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you. Then we see Springtrap appear, which didn't make sense then and doesn't make sense now. That being said, new theories. We are William. This theory is just wrong. I don't feel like going into it very much, but it did set up the idea that the little girl that Baby scooped was Afton's as-of-yet unnamed daughter, and that will be important. Afton spies on his children. This is based on the 96 camera Easter egg, and it's just right, it's barely even a theory. Look at it. There are cameras set up from Afton's basement, wherein we see the FNAF 4 house. Obviously, he's spying on his kids. And last, this series will never make sense. Matt returns with some variation on this every game or two, but this is basically the magnum opus of his speech, so I'm gonna go over it now. Basically, he says that because Scott is always flying by the seat of his pants and making up this story as it goes, there will never be enough concrete evidence for a real theory, and between the games, the books, and the already then upcoming movie, there would never be one simple cohesive story. And honestly, he's totally right, but I'll get there. Jax, you seem very surprised by the idea the movie was already then upcoming.
First time I heard about it was this year.
Oh! Yeah, this movie has been stuck in development hell since, I think, the FNAF 3 era? Possibly FNAF 4. The new timeline. As of Sister Location, here's how the timeline goes. Crying Child is scared because he saw someone getting stuffed into an animatronic suit and was understandably terrified of the animatronics. Basically there's a moment in FNAF 4 that is very obviously just just a worker having a costume put on, but Matt decided that no, that's actually a murder happening, and Crying Child saw it. Unfortunately, his father William Afton owns the building, so he can't exactly escape the animatronics. William installed surveillance cameras in his house, knowing that he could keep track of his children much better that way because he knows he's been found out. Then, Bite of 83, Crying Child gets charmed. William witnesses his own son gets killed because of an animatronic he built, and so he makes one final promise. I will put you back together. In an effort to do just that, he creates the fun times to capture kids and then bring them to his bring them into him alive so he can experiment on them. But he flies too close to the sun and his daughter is killed. Now, the animatronics want to be free, but they can't exactly get out on their own. So instead, they fuse into the amalgam known as Ennard, and they kill the other technicians, ultimately scooping out William's innards and replacing them with Ennards. This is pretty good. Honestly, I like this timeline. It's a shame this timeline would be disproven before another game even comes out. Speaking of, let's talk about the Twisted Ones. This book is not good. I can tell you every single thing you need to know about this book with the quote you have on screen right now. You never know when a corpse may wander out of the shadows wearing a rabbit suit. That is a real, actual line that a real, actual writer was really, actually paid to write.
I do know when that will happen. Never.
Yeah, because that doesn't make any goddamn sense!
And what is that cover?
That cover is Nightmare from FNAF 4. You remember I mentioned him earlier?
I do. I'm talking more about the general design.
Ah, okay, that's fair. Speaking of, Nightmare never appears in this book. They put him on the cover.
What?
They put him on the cover and he's not even in the damn book.
cover and
to
then
give
also they get them
to give a super brief overview of the important parts of this shitty book. There are some new animatronics who look super creepy, kind of like the Nightmares, but they also have stomach hatches like the Fun Times. I think that's why they put Nightmare on the cover, because Nightmare is similar. He's one of the Nightmare animatronics, obviously, but he also has a stomach mouth, kind of like a Funtime animatronic stomach hatch. But also, they don't actually look like that. They actually look like super rudimentary, smooth designs, but they have sound illusion discs inside of them that make people think they look like that. Yes, Jax! That is the correct reaction! And then, at the end of the book, Twisted Freddy seemingly kills Charlie, only for her to show back up in the last 2 pages, seemingly much more adult than before. How won't be explained until the 3rd book, which I'll get to later. That is it. That's everything you need to know. You never know when a corpse may wander out of the shadows wearing a rabbit suit.
Actually, I need to know who designed that cover so I can start a petition to get them sent to jail directly. Do not pass go, do not collect 200.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about a couple of new twisted theories. So, we play as Mike in Sister Location. I'm not sure what exactly caused this to emerge, but obviously, maybe, I don't know, the character who says at the end of the game, "Father, it's me, Michael," is maybe our protagonist. And all this can make me think of is the line from his monologue, "They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you." And this, of course, led to Mike Trap theories, where people said that Mike was Purple Guy was Springtrap, but I'm not touching that, because that's stupid. Even at the time, there was more evidence for Will Trap than Mike Trap. And FNAF 4 wasn't a dream, it was an illusion disc hallucination. That guy on screen there, that is the full version of Nightmare. And as you can see, his image is it's partially distorted and very translucent, because he wasn't real. He was an illusion disc hallucination. Afton wasn't just keeping track of his kids to keep them from finding out more than they should, he was also keeping track of them to witness the effects of his mind control sound illusion hallucination discs. The new timeline, again. So, Matt's presentation for this in the original video was excellent. In my original draft of this video, wherein I left a lot more stuff, in my original draft, I tried to leave that presentation intact. That original draft had almost as many pages of notes as I have slides. I'm not doing that. So, here is the Spark Notes. For reasons that we don't know, William kills the first victim. Then he gets addicted to the process of killing and he takes out the MCI. And he takes out the 5 MCI kids. But then he wants to automate the process, so he starts creating the Funtime animatronics. But that bites him in the ass because his own daughter gets scooped. Leaving just because his own daughter gets caught up in the killing. "I didn't think the leopards would eat my face," says woman who voted for the leopards eating people party. Soon afterwards, his son gets chomped by Fredbear because of a mean prank from his other son, leaving just William and his son Michael. In 1987, another round of murders happens, and once again it's William getting hands-on because he doesn't want to leave anything out of his control. But once he realizes the animatronics are haunted, are haunted, he goes back and tries to disassemble them. But what he doesn't realize is that will let their spirits out so they can chase him, and he gets stuck, and he gets hit in springlock failure because of the pouring rain, and he gets stuck in that old safe room for 30 years, somehow not dying, because, you know, karma is a god. Eventually, Michael goes down to the sister location bunker, gets scooped, and somehow comes back to life, finds William, and traps him inside Fazbear's Fright, and lets it all burn, killing his father once and for all. And now, we finally get to my favorite game in the series, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. The final chapter. Once and for all, let it all burn. There is so much lore in this game that, just like in the other games, appears in optional, out-of-the-way minigames. So I'm just gonna go by each of these, point by point by point by point by point. Freddy Maze. This one's pretty simple. After playing the game 3 times, you see Spring Bonnie luring away a little girl with blonde hair while saying, "Oh, your dog's not dead, he's over here. Follow me." You think we know what happens here? I don't like his little games. Don't like his tilted stage and all that. Also, Matt used this moment as evidence for the idea that, William used her dog as the foundations for Mangle. What? No? No? Huh? Midnight Motorist. This one still, it just doesn't make sense. It shows an orange man driving a purple car, showing up to a place called Junior's and getting turned away, so he goes home. Then, he finds out that his son has locked himself in his room, so he goes around back to see that his son busted through the window and ran off to that place again. We don't know anything about this minigame now. We sure as hell didn't then. Candy Cadet. Candy Cadet tells you 3 stories, and in all 3 of them, basically the same thing happens. 5 things get fused into one thing, but the combination is ultimately less than the sum of its parts. Security Puppet! This is the only one more in your face than Fruity Maze. A young girl is out in the rain and gets killed, and then is taken in by the puppet. Oh my god. So we know what just happened. Like, I don't think I need to spell that out. The next 2 aren't minigames, but they're still very much worth noting. Salvages. Between nights, you salvage 4 animatronics. They are, in this order, Molten Freddy, Scrap Baby, Scrap Trap, because he always comes back and he never goes out of style, and Lefty. While none of these are huge lore reveals, it is important to note who's inside the pizzeria. And last, Remnant! In the insanity ending of this game, you get a massive lore drop from someone named HRY223, revealing blueprints for the Funtime animatronics, as well as Lefty. The important parts are, Lefty was designed to lure and encapsulate someone, and the Funtimes collect a substance called Remnant. That being said, all of this ultimately leads to, I hope you die in a fire. Hope this is what you desire. The true ending of this game. Someone comes in over voiceover, wherein we hear a monologue that goes roughly as follows. "I'm sorry, my brave volunteer. You found a job listing that was not meant for you. And now, you are going to burn to death along with all of these others. To you, my beloved daughter, along with Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, and all of you inside Molten Freddy, there's peace waiting for you. But to one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened up to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend." And my god, if that is not one of the rawest lines in this entire franchise, then I don't know what is. New theories. Lefty equals puppet. I love that Funko statue that I managed to pull an image of. This is pretty self-explanatory, and it's tied in with the next theory, that ending speech guy is Henry. This is basically just because of the HRY223 thing, and the fact that it makes the most sense with the "my daughter" line. And the box. The box takes some explaining, because I didn't mention it in FNAF 4. So, in FNAF 4, the game ends with a box, along with text saying, "Maybe some things are best left forgotten. For now." No one understood it then, no one understands it now. But Matt thought he understood it as of FNAF 6. The box has changed 3 times. First, it was the evidence for Dream Theory. Then, it was FNAF World. No, I haven't talked about FNAF World. Basically, it was this random, barely canon side RPG that added a few interesting lore reveals and a tease for sister location. And as of FNAF 6, it's Henry's Trap. All of this is purely based on one post Scott made where he said that the box contained all the pieces put together, but he didn't know if fans would accept it that way, so he decided it would never be opened. That being said, we finally get to what might genuinely be the coolest thing this franchise has ever done, the survival logbook. This was a kids' activity book with lore. So this had tons of hidden lore everywhere, as someone writing in red pen, presumably someone named Mike, based on the intro, communicates with someone writing in super faded text. And this gave us 2 big reveals. The idea that Mike might be the crying child, and the name Cassidy. Now, Mike equals crying child has since been disproven, and I really don't like it, so I'm not going to cover it here, but hang on to the idea that Mike might be the FNAF 4 protagonist, as that will be important. And the name Cassidy. That will be very important. Jax, I hope even you know that. Thanks to the true ending of FNAF 6, we know the names of the other 4 MCI victims who went on to possess the Core 4 animatronics. But you know what name we didn't see? The name for the spirit possessing Golden Freddy. Thanks to an incredibly complicated code that was deciphered in this book, we found a name for that spirit. Cassidy. That being said, from one book to another, we have to discuss the 4th closet. And oh my god, who is she? This book is worse than the Twisted one somehow, but I gotta talk about it because it's important. This book introduces a new, grown-up version of Charlie, who is so human-like, and apparently so sexy, that she gets one of the main characters aroused. I wish to high heaven that I were joking. But she's not human. She is a robot. She is a robot made to look like a human being. Because when Charlie died a long, long time ago, when she was like 4. So what Henry did was created 4 different robotic versions of her. Toddler, child, teen, adult. And this adult one is somehow also Circus Baby. Because why the fuck not?
You can think of several reasons why not. Also, again, the covers of these books are worse than floating head posters.
Yeah. 4th Closet may have sucked, but now we get on to something that's actually pretty cool. Ultimate Custom Night. I want to talk more about Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night is really cool. But this series is gradually draining away my sanity. We have been filming for no less than an hour and a half at this point, and I am so done, and this video is running so long that I'm just gonna go over it in brief. This game is William Afton being haunted for all eternity by someone known as the One You Should Not Have Killed, or the Vengeful Spirit. And the Vengeful Spirit is refusing to let him move on, even to the darkest pit of hell. And in the cutscene you get after beating the game's hardest setting, 50-20 mode, you see who the Vengeful Spirit is. Golden Freddy. CASSIDY. The one you should not have killed. And with that, William can make a full-time one. So, William stuffs and kills the MCI kids at Freddy's. Freddy's closed and Circus Baby's opens, then closes after only one day because the leopards ate his face. Lizzie gets scooped. At Fredbear's, the crying child, aka Michael at this point, gets chomped, and William promises to rebuild him a robot body. Soon afterwards, a second Freddy's location is opened, and Henry constructs the security puppet to keep his daughter, Charlie, safe. But it doesn't work, and Charlie gets shanked. Years go by, at least one more series of murders happens, which is never mentioned again, and to hunt Remnant, William disassembles the animatronics and then gets spring-locked. 20 to 30 years pass, and William eventually becomes a prop at Fazbear Frights, and a now rebuilt Michael hunts him down and, with the aid of Henry, goes all "look what you made me do," and burns him twice, dying himself in the second fire. And to wrap it up, CASSIDY hunts William for all eternity. Now, are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? Are we in the clear yet? Are we in the clear yet? Good? Oh, come on, don't leave me like this! I thought I had you figured out! Help wanted through security breach. The Steel Wool Era. Beginning with Help Wanted and the Indie Down. Help Wanted was an incredibly important game for FNAF. But probably the most important thing it did was this. It introduced the idea that FNAF 1 through 4, or possibly 1 through Sister Location, or possibly 1 through 6, were all in-universe video games created by an indie developer hired by Fazbear to cover up the real events tied to the brand. This has huge implications for the lore, obviously, as it states that everything we've seen up to this point might very well be, as Hand Unit phrases it,
total fabrications from the mind of a complete lunatic. Lawsuits pending.
I mean, we've known he's been a complete lunatic this entire time. We just thought his games were canon to themselves. Additionally, this game also features collectible tapes that, when put together, reveal something very interesting. There's a thing inside the game. Oh, yeah, Help Wanted is also an in-universe VR game that we are an in-universe VR tester for. And it can infect the person who plays it, and potentially get out. It almost infected a previous beta tester, Jeremy. Yes, this is the third unrelated person in the franchise with the name Jeremy. It's confusing. Until it almost infected him, until he sliced off his own face with a paper cutter.
Did he live?
I doubt it! I don't think he wanted to!
Okay, cool.
But either way, the thing didn't escape through him. It did, however, escape thanks to Tape Girl, who recorded these things, and probably also us. But what is this thing, you ask? He really does always come back, doesn't he? This is Glitch Trap. What exactly he is will be left for any number of theories going forward. But for now, just remember that no matter what ending you get, he goes free into the real world. Speaking of theories, that is not William. Matt says Glitchtrap is not actually William Afton, and is instead a piece of malicious code. How there's malicious code capable of having Afton's consciousness and being able to escape is unclear, but after UCN, that's kind of the only possibility. Reboot. Matt says that Help Wanted is essentially a soft reboot, retconning away parts of the earlier games that contradict the story Scott and Steelwool now want to tell. Oh, also, I haven't mentioned this yet. The reason I call this the Steelwool era is because at this point, Scott was licensing out the games to a third-party studio called Steelwool Studios. So if I say Steelwool, that's what I'm talking about. If I say Scott, I really hope you know who Scott Cawthon is. But honestly, yeah, this was pretty exciting at the time. It meant that they were no longer shackled by old continuity that they had set in place before Scott really had any idea what he was doing. And lastly, Shark jumped. This is my way of saying that all of the other theories from this era are, as I said in my original notes, Shark jumps 3 through 15. This series is now so hilariously off the rails that we're looking back through every single FNAF game in the hopes that somehow, maybe, we could find something new about this game. Also, while I was writing that, I mistyped hopes and it autocorrected to hopeless. And that really does say quite a bit about what this franchise is. That being said, now we get to Curse of Dreadbear. After the AR game that I'm not talking about and you can't make me, but before Security Breach, this game had DLC called The Curse of Dreadbear. And this thing had huge lore reveals. Specifically, if you went for full completion, you could get a white rabbit mask, and if you put it on while holding a green plush trap toy, you can hear an as of yet unnamed woman talking to Glitchtrap and saying, "Yes, I have it. I made it myself. I think you would like it." Clearly, she's talking about the mask. However, thanks to some other reveals on the Scott Games website, we would quickly learn this woman's name. Vanny. Or as Matt quickly concluded, Vanessa, plus Bunny. Now we talk about the Cult of Glitchtrap, which was one of the coolest ways this franchise ever looked like it was gonna go. From the dialogue at the end, obviously there's something fishy going on here. Specifically, Vanny is sort of being controlled by Glitchtrap, I guess, and she's being told to create a mask to start killing kids. Matt's theory is that she's not alone. He was thinking that there was going to be a full, massive cult of Glitchtrap, and it would be our job to put an end to them. And soon, the dominoes would be cascading in a line. And boom, and Glitchtrap's a mastermind. Honestly, that would have been sick. Shame it didn't happen, but we'll get there. For now, we gotta talk about the next book series, Fazbear Frights. The covers are better, at least. This was a series of Goosebumps-style books, each of which was a collection of 3 novella-length stories set in the FNAF universe, which usually didn't have much to do with the main timeline, but, like the Silver Eyes trilogy, introduced some new ideas that the games could later expand on. There are a few big ones I need to cover. New lore. Mike is Foxy Bro. There was a story which confirmed it outright, finally. Mediocre Chicken. So, to explain this as succinctly as I can, FNAF 6 had a group of animatronics called the Mediocre Melodies. And those Mediocre Melodies were random joke characters that no one ever thought about until in Ultimate Custom Night, they were the voice of the one you should not have killed. And then, they stopped being important once again, until, in one of the Frights books, there was a character who worked on 4 animatronics who were 1-for-1 with the melodies, and one that was described as a weird bird thing. So in other words, Chica was a mediocre melody, and was not originally part of Fazbear. And last, identity theft. Basically, there were a bunch of books that talked about how that gave evidence to the idea that identity theft was going to be a big deal going forward. Put a pin on that. But now, we talk about the most important things in the franchise, the Stitch Wraith. This is one of the most buck-wild things for the franchise to ever drop. Usually, if we get a massive lore drop, it's in one of the games, in like a big moment. See Henry's ending speech in FNAF 6. This is an incredibly important story that appears in little mini-stories at the end of each Frights book. So, there's a lot to this thing, and I'm dividing it into two sections. Agony and Double Haunting. Agony is revealed in the books to be the most powerful human emotion, and it can be used in someone's death, and if it's used in someone's death, then it can be extracted to bring something to life when it otherwise wouldn't. Hey, Scott, Toby Fox called. He wants his determination back. Originally, we thought this was basically a more fleshed out version of Remnant. We now understand, although not 100% sure Matt understands this, but the rest of us understand that Agony is different. It's just similar. Basically, Remnant is soul juice injected into the animatronics. It can be destroyed at high temperatures, and it's basically a person's still active consciousness. Agony cannot be destroyed, and it is a wild animal. It is rage incarnate that just needs to lash out at something and couldn't care less what that something is. And Double Haunting. It is revealed in the 5th of these little stories that there are two spirits inside the Stitch Wraith, Jake and Andrew. Jake is a pretty normal kid who's understandably freaked out by a situation. Andrew is an angry boy filled with vengeance and a lust for blood. And since he's the angrier, more agonized one, he's the one in control. He doesn't remember much, but he remembers enough. He remembers that he was killed brutally, and now he wants his killer to suffer, but not die. Someone tries to take out his killer numerous times because she can feel a dark presence emanating from him. He refuses to let that happen. He will never let him leave. I cannot express to you how huge this was. 4 years! We had assumed that Golden Freddy must just be possessed by the Crying Child. Then we realized, oh, must just be Cassidy, right? And then, and the Crying Child was laid to rest, I guess? I don't know. He didn't have a conclusion. And now, we know that it is very possible for two spirits to possess one body. And if one of them is substantially angrier, or you could say, more vengeful, then that would be the one with control over their shared body. Security Breach Teasers. Princess Quest. Before Security Breach came out, Steel Wool made a mobile port of Help Wanted that introduced a 16-bit minigame called Princess Quest. In this game, through complicated shenanigans, it was revealed that by beta testing the VR game, Vanessa had inadvertently freed Glitch Trap, who Matt concluded was definitely just actually William's soul. And Tentacle Monster. It was revealed in one of the teasers, but no one knew what it was. I just want to include this because of how completely wrong Matt is, while also somehow being completely right. Originally, Matt said this was Nightmare On, but because of the lack of stripes and Nightmare On's questionable canonicity, he tossed out the theory. Instead, he said that the tentacle monster was Circus Baby, who, because of Fazbear Frights, was now going to shoot black blood tentacles out of her stomach. Oh my god, I hate these books. He also said that the Pizzaplex was going to be built on top of the original Fredbears. And that is hilarious in retrospect. But we'll get there. Now we finally get to Security Breach. Steel Wool's Shamble. There are 6 endings in this game. The bad ending. Gregory leaves the Pizzaplex and is hunted by Vanessa and then is presumably killed or something. You're on your own, kid, you always have been. Van ending. Gregory and Freddy escape in a van and have a good time. Fire escape ending. The building catches fire. Freddy and Gregory escape. Vanny gets killed and Vanny gets killed and unmasked to be Vanessa. And somehow, we see Vanessa standing at the top of the Pizzaplex as it burns. No, we don't understand this. The only thing we know about this is that it wasn't an animation error, because this was done in a hand-drawn comic book style. For some reason. Bad Vanny ending. Vanny tells the staff bots to disassemble Freddy. And they do, and then Gregory says, disassemble Vanny. Even though she is not a robot. Yeah, that surprise is correct. Princess Quest. If you get the Vanny ending after beating all 3 Princess Quest arcade machines, Princess Quest is back now, then you instead deactivate the staff bots and leave the pizzeria along with Vanessa and Freddy's head. And this is largely considered to be the best ending in the game. This ending leaves Vanessa's mask in the pizzeria, and also leaves most of Freddy's body. That is worth noting. And lastly, the Afton ending. He really does always come back, doesn't he? This right here, this is why we can't have nice things. Also, another thing that is just worth noting about the Afton ending is that it involves us going down and realizing that the Pizzaplex is built on the ruins of the FNAF 6 Pizzeria. Not Fredbear's Family Diner, but it's, again, I love how Matt managed to be so completely wrong while also so completely and utterly right. Also, due to the fact that this is the ending that had the most trouble unlocking, and also the one with the full cutscene, most people assumed this to be the true ending of the game. Retro CDs. There is so much stuff in these things, but I am not going to touch on most of this. Here is what I will touch on. These are recordings of therapy sessions. There are 2 characters in these recordings. One of them is clearly Vanessa. The other one never speaks and doesn't have a name, so we just refer to them as Patient 46. Vanessa has been having strange, encrypted conversations with someone. Her dad was named Bill. There was a custody battle going on over her between Bill and her mother. Vanessa was coerced into giving a fake testimony that led to her mother herself. And also, Vanessa has been looking for fake fur to make a costume. Patient 46. When the therapists change, which happens like 5 times, Patient 46 is never surprised, unlike Vanessa. They think it's funny that 2 of the therapists mysteriously vanished, and one of them was found very, very dead and very, very mangled. They are seemingly a child based on lines about their stature and them not knowing certain words. They're good with computers. Animatronics start to go haywire and it can be traced back to them. The therapist describes their past as a fantasy they made up because apparently they lied about their entire backstory. Yesterday was a fairy tale stuck in their wildest dreams. Theories. Gregory equals robot equals crying child. This is an annoying one that basically says Gregory is a robotic rebuilt version of Crying Child. Somehow. Because they look similar, and also there's a ton of evidence pointing to Gregory being a robot. I like the Gregbot portion, I don't like the Greg is Crying Child portion. Princess equals Cassidy. This is based on the file name, and I will be honest, the only reason that I am including this is because I found that piece of fan art and I really wanted to use it. Afton is pure agony. This is just based on the fact that Agony can't seemingly be destroyed, and that he is basically a shambling mess of parts with no clear goal. This is the first of the theories I'm mentioning this is the first of the theories I'm strongly mentioning from someone other than MatPat, because this is the era when we finally saw a lot of other FNAF theory channels on the rise. Specifically, this is from RyeToast, my favorite FNAF tuber. They're awesome. Freddy equals Michael. This is back to Matt, and like the CASSIDY theory, it's mainly narrative-based. I didn't go over the CASSIDY theory. Basically, also, the CASSIDY theory was mostly based on evidence that it just works narratively for Cassidy to continue haunting William. The Freddy equals Michael theory is again narrative-based. Mike spent years chasing after William, so with him back, it makes sense for him to come back as well, because apparently, life is a willow and it bends right to his will. Okay, and then a couple 46 theories. One of these is from Matt, the other is from John, aka FuhNaff. Matt's theory is based around Gregbot being true, and other than that I'm not sure how much evidence he has, he states that Gregory is patient 46. John's theory states that Charlie is patient 46. Somehow, I don't want to cover this, but it does remind us of two important things. Sound illusion discs, and the fact that there are wires going all around the pizzeria that look a lot like Nightmarion's arms. Now, old lore, new view. Because Security Breach brought in so many new fans, a lot of people started looking back at old lore in new ways. Molten MCI. Molten MCI is the theory that Molten Freddy, and by extension the Funtimes, aren't possessed by any one soul, but are instead a combination of all 5 of the MCI victims with their remnant all mixed together. There's also Molten DCI, which is the exact same thing, except it's about the Dead Child incident, or DCI, and I kinda only bring that up because I want to make sure we're all on the same page that the DCI did happen and was separate from the MCI. Michael possessed himself. This is one of those theories that gets brought up so often, it kind of becomes ubiquitous in the fandom, to the point that people forget where it originally came from. That's me. I'm people. I have no idea where this came from. But, to go over it, it basically states that because Mike was a walking corpse by the time energy ejected itself from him, his coming back to life was caused by his spirit being so damn powerful, he managed to haunt his own corpse. No, this doesn't really make sense, but it's our only solid lead on how that happened. Evan Afton. Now, we get to the moment Jax mentioned before about Crying Child equals Evan. Thanks to looking back at the survival logbook, it was concluded that the Crying Child's name is Evan. This is pretty flimsy evidence, but it's the only name we have for him, and it doesn't really matter if it's proven wrong, so I'm sticking with it. This is like people referring to the purple guy as Vincent in the early days, because no one knew his actual name. It's not like it particularly matters to the lore what his name is, so if we're wrong, so be it. But for the sake of my sanity for the rest of this video, he's Evan. Mike is the FNAF 4 Nights PC. I've mentioned this before, but this is when it was really established firmly. Basically, this is saying that Mike is being tormented by nightmares of the animatronics, or possibly being tortured by William as revenge for killing the favored son, because in the logbook, there are drawings from him of Nightmare Fredbear. Those drawings were the original evidence for the Mike equals Crying Child theory, and then when that was disproven, it's now being used to link Mike to the night gameplay. Okay, then, what the hell is the order for the early events? We know that the first 4 major events of the series are, in some order, Evan gets chomped, Charlie gets shanked, MCIs get stuffed, Lizzie gets scooped. Those have to be the early 4 events, because FNAF 4 doesn't make any sense without deaths, sister location and beyond have to happen after all of them, and there need to be at least 11 dead children by the time of FNAF 2. Everyone had their own theory during this time, and honestly it was really cool, but all we knew was that these events had to be the earliest part of the timeline. Hell, I have my own theory, but I ain't even gonna touch on that. Were we wrong about Happiest Day? Okay, I haven't mentioned it yet, but in FNAF 3, there was a set of minigames you could get through complicated shenanigans involving the tapping in numbers on the wall thing, called the Happiest Day minigames, wherein a scared, crying child at a birthday party gets a golden Freddy mask, and then he, along with 5 other children, one of whom is the puppet, all disappear and their masks fall to the ground. We had assumed for years that this was the puppet putting Evan and possibly the MCI souls to rest. Then, people started to question. First, Rye asked if that's really what happened, because this doesn't look like anyone being put to rest, unless everyone was, including Charlie, and we know that didn't happen. Then, the character encyclopedia dropped, and everything changed, because in the appearances section for Evan, he wasn't listed as appearing in FNAF 3. This got people thinking that maybe it was the spirits being put to rest, but Evan wasn't one of them. And now, the most recent book in a series called Tales from the Pizzaplex that I'll get to next, includes a revelation that apparently ghosts can choose whether or not they move on, as long as their body has been found. So to me, I think I know what Happiest Day was, but I'll save that for a video down the line. And last, Game Theory's Ultimate Timeline. I want to mention this because it is a really well-made timeline, and the 2 videos in the middle of it, going over the stuff that begins with the Bite of 83 and ends with the FNAF 6 Fire, is largely pretty accurately understood. Also, the videos are, awesome. They're incredibly well made, like I said. And I highly recommend you check them out, but don't expect videos 1 and 4 to be all that accurate to how the lore is now seen, as they are swiftly, or quickly, not quiftly, shooed away by Tales from the Pizzaplex. After finishing the Frights books, a new series came out. And oh boy, these have some giant-ass lore reveals. These books are why I hesitated to bring up the Ultimate Timeline. Also, it is worth noting that at this point, Scott really seems to have this thing where he gets older but just never wiser, because a lot of these, A, a lot of the stories are hit or miss, and B, they are one-for-one parallels with the older stories, including a lot of rehashes of things that are discussed in Frights or Self-Rise. That being said, let's talk about them. 3 big stories that are worth noting. GGY. This story features a kid with the initials GGY who has a high score on every single arcade machine. And after our protagonist, who is not that kid, goes down a long-ass rabbit hole, he finds his friend, jokingly called Dr. Rabbit. Dr. Rabbit is revealed to be reprogramming the animatronics, as well as killing school counselors who got too close to the truth. And when they get to the end of the story, Dr. Rabbit's name is revealed. Greg. In other words, Gregory is patient 46, and he was controlled by Afton for a while. The Mimic. A man named Edwin works for Fazbear, and he's so overworked that he can't play with his son David. So he creates a program called Mimic 1 and puts it into an animatronic called the Mimic, who can mimic any behavior it sees. So it learns to play with David, and he spends all his time with it, till one day his ball bounces into the road, and in the process of trying to get it, he gets hit by a car and dies. The Mimic continues pretending to be David, until Edwin, in a fit of grief and rage, beats the ever-loving shit out of the thing, pouring all of his agony into it. The Mimic has now been taught violence, so when a group of Fazbear technicians come to find it, it brutally kills them. And then, it's left to roam around the basement of the Pizzaplex, being incredibly violent towards anyone who finds it. And it is also revealed in one of the Mimic epilogues that the Mimic it likes wearing costumes, and it can contort itself into any suit, even a suit with a human body inside of it. There is an incredibly graphic moment one time where it gets inside of a suit someone is wearing, and let's just say it her. And it is so brutal. There are intestines and blood and stuff flying everywhere. It's gross. I don't want to get my channel flagged, so I'm gonna leave it at that. And last, the Storyteller. The Storyteller is basically a sequel to the Mimic. 40 years later, Edwin joins Fazbear Entertainment's board of directors and is subservient to a man named Mr. Burroughs. Burroughs, needing to save money, lays off the entire creative team and replaces them with a program. A program called Mimic 1. Now Edwin is understandably furious, but that's not really the important one. Mimic 1 gets connected to the entire system and makes all the animatronics start to act like 4-year-olds, because it still has David's memory inside of it. Now, Edwin is obviously a Henry parallel, like that's not even in question. So that got people thinking if David might be a Charlie parallel, and that raises the simple question: is Charlie possessing the Pizzaplex? And the answer is yes. Remember the striped Nightmarion wires that John brought up? Yeah, they're back. There were also tons of Nightmarion plushes in the Pizzaplex, despite them being a very minor character within an in-universe VR game. Now, you might be wondering, but wait, is Gregory controlling the Pizzaplex or is Charlie? The answer is complicated, but basically both of them are. Charlie is competing with GGY for control, but since GGY stopped being controlled by Afton, Charlie largely has control over everything except the basement of the Pizzaplex. And this still raises the question of, are the books canon? No, this doesn't get its own slide this time. I return you to this image. Basically, the answer is still the same, but with more asterisks. Some people will try to tell you that the Tales books are 1-for-1 to the games. That doesn't make any sense, because there are so many reasons why the Tales books can't be in the main continuity, because there are so many things that they contradict with the games. Basically, your opinion is just as valid as the rest of us. Don't get too open arms about this. But, please don't go harassing anyone, even if your opinion is weird.
I think I've got an idea of kind of how it works. So these are the games. These are the books. There's a little connect. Some things are in both. Part of the plot of the games adds to the books, part of the plot of the books adds to the games. They are not necessarily mutually exclusive in plot, but they are not one singular plot.
Like something that happens in one universe may have happened in one of the other universes, but it's not guaranteed to have happened. And unless you have evidence within the games of something happening, it's generally a better bet that it's a parallel to something in story. Now, we finally reach Ruin DLC and beyond, beginning with Ruin, where you and I walk a fragile line. Ruin had a number of very important things, but here are the 4 biggest ones. The Vanny mask. This is the Virtual Augmented Neural Network Integration, or Vanny mask. When you put it on, you see everything in this weird lavender haze, and can sometimes walk through objects that do exist, or get blocked by ones that don't. Somehow. Cassie's dad. Cassie is our protagonist, and you may notice that her name is Cassie. That sounds familiar, does it not? Yeah. Also, she makes frequent references to her dad, who seems to be a Fazbear technician. Or seems to have been a Fazbear technician. All of her dialogue about him refers to him in the past tense. The Mimic. Oh my god, he actually didn't come back. That was based around a joke that I intended to make a while ago about the Mimic. I pretend that when I was talking about the Mimic in the books, I said something about him in the basement, and joked, did he actually not come back? Because this time, oh my god, he actually did not come back. As Cassie walks around the Pizzaplex, she finds the source of the totally definitely Gregory voice guiding her from the basement, in the same place Burntrap was, and it's this thing. So in other words, oh my god, he didn't come back. And last, Eclipse. There's a moment in this game where we have to reboot the daycare attendant, Sun and Moon. Yes, I know I didn't talk about Sun and Moon before. If you're watching this video, you almost certainly know who Sun and Moon are. There's a moment where we have to reboot the daycare attendant, and it reveals that apparently this thing, Eclipse, is what they were always supposed to be. This is weird. And it gets us to one of the theories in the next slide. Theories. Princess Quest is the canon ending. This one's pretty simple. It basically states that because Fanny's mask is left on the floor, and it's here, as well as other details, Princess Quest is the canon ending. Glamrock Bonnie. Glamrock Bonnie was mentioned a few times in Security Breach, but nothing really came of him until in Ruin we get to see his remains, and he appears to have been destroyed and have claw marks along his chest. Like Bonnie, not like Monty, attacked him. Elevator. Specifically the question of who killed the elevator, because the game ends with Gregory coming on your comms and saying, "I'm sorry, Cassie, but I can't afford to let that thing leave," and then kills the elevator you're in, sending you hurtling to the ground. The question was this: is that Gregory, or is that the Mimic pretending to be Gregory? There's a lot of evidence both ways, and I don't feel like going into it either way right now. My opinion is personally that it was the Mimic, but like I said, either way is valid. MXES, Mexus. Throughout most of this game, we're hunted by this toon-summoned skull-looking thing called the Mexus security system. And no one has a goddamn clue what it was designed for. Was it to keep the Mimic in check? Then when was it created? Was it for something else? Then what else? And lastly, Eclipse is old. There is more merch for the daycare attendant than there is for anyone else. And that merch seems to depict it being associated not just with the Glamrocks, but with every single iteration of Fazbear animatronics. It's associated with the Glamrocks. It's associated with the core animatronics. It's associated with Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. And it's associated with stuff from even before that. Because the franchise is setting up something called Carnival. We don't know what exactly they're planning with Carnival, but we know it's gonna be something. Speaking of, what do we know? Short answer, quite a bit, actually. More than I realized. William and Henry initially ran rival companies, Henry having cheek of Fredbear and the mediocre melodies. The two eventually joined, scrapping the melodies while giving Bonnie and Fredbear the spotlight in Fredbear's Family Diner. Fredbear got so popular that eventually it spawned off Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, although, and this is important, Fredbear stayed open. Then, in some nebulous and unclear order, Evan gets chomped, Charlie gets shanked, MCIs get stuffed, William discovers Remnant, Funhouse get built, Lizzie gets scooped. Then, William goes on another killing spree, DCI. He tries to disassemble the MCI animatronics, but he freed their spirits and they chased him into a spring-lock suit where he almost died but not quite. At this same time, Sister Location happens, and Mike gets scooped and then possesses himself and decides to find William. Mike goes on a hunt to free all the spirits of the children that his father had killed, leading him to, at minimum, the FNAF 1 and FNAF 2 locations. It's possible there were more, but that's what we're clear on. Somewhere from 20 to 30 years go by, and at an attraction called Fazbear Frights, they uncover Springtrap. Mike goes there and becomes a nighttime security guard and finds his father. Mike burns the place to the ground, but unsurprisingly, it doesn't work. He always comes back. Henry gets all the animatronics together, burning them, setting almost everyone's souls free. Cassidy refuses to move on, but luckily, this doesn't really matter. Another 20 to 30 years go by, and Fazbear Entertainment is rebooted as a much smaller company. Fazbear tries to make an in-universe VR game to cover up the events from their wacky past, but inadvertently uses the Mimic 1 program that Henry created a while back in their code, and they create Glitch Trap. Help Wanted happens, and they let Glitch Trap infect Vanessa. Security breach and ruin happen, ending with Cassie somehow not dying from that elevator crash. What do we not know? In what order are the deaths of Evan, Charlie, and Elizabeth? Is Edwin canon to the games? We can assume no on that one, but it's still a question. Who's experiencing the dreams in FNAF 4? And when? Follow-up, are those even dreams? Because some recent Tales books seem to be saying otherwise. Basically, there's a Tales book recently where there is someone who's in a room that is a damn lot like the FNAF 4 bedroom, where they're haunted every night by on-rails animatronics that appear much scarier to them because they are in a room that is being filled full of nightmare gas that's changing what they say. Who fled the room during Midnight Motorist? What's that place? Why is there a single set of animatronic footprints? Why is there so much evidence of Charlie being at the Pizzaplex? Where is Vanessa in Ruin? Why is Freddy now a prototype as of Ruin, as we can see written on his foot, for some reason? But with all those questions and not a single answer, we're finally done. So, in conclusion, FNAF lore is like snow on the beach. Weird, but fucking beautiful. Yet at the same time, with the fandom in regard to the lore, Story of Us looks a lot like a tragedy now. Slide 24, fan art. Thank you to the fan artists listed on screen for creating models and art that I used when official images either were non-existent or were unusably terrible. Also, one other awesome fan thing. Hey, if you like this franchise, but like me, you are somewhat annoyed at the direction it's been being taken as of late, I have something for you to check out. A YouTuber that I really admire, Kiwi Queen, has been doing this fanfic series called FNAF Security Breach Rewritten, wherein she, as the name implies, has been rewriting Security Breach to make it, better. A lot of the writing is genuinely spine-chilling. I love her version of these characters so much, and Peepaw Willie is finally dead. Also, this series is currently on hiatus as she writes the last section, so now is the perfect time to get into it. That being said, thank you for watching! And just like FNAF lore, I hope this video was like snow on the beach. Weird, but fucking beautiful. Jax, you got anything to plug?
As always, you can find me at that damn Demi, damn spelled like a beaver dam, literally anywhere. Come say hi. I'm gonna try, if I can find the free time, to do a Michael Afton cosplay around when the FNAF movie comes out. It's been in the works since May.
Which means that as of you seeing this, if all goes according to plan, it should be happening in the near future.
So that'll be on TikTok. If it's there, go check it out, like it. If not, yell at me on my other posts.
So, yeah.
I'll take the interactions.
I need to go drink some tea. I have been recording for no less than, 2.5 hours at this point. Talking... Huh?
2 hours, 37 minutes, give or take. 2 hours
Yeah.
and about 40
2
minutes,
hours,
give or take.
40 minutes, give or take. Oh boy. So, thanks for watching. check out this video, which is probably something horror related. And until next time, stay ultra, and peace out.